Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals and welcome to some more Heart of the Swarm beta action. Today it is a ladder game. It was sent to me by the lovely Zerg player that is on screen right now, JonnyREcco. He dropped it over, he was like, Madals, this game is pretty good, would you like to give it a cast? And why don't you see who his opponent is if you haven't already noticed at the top of the screen. You will see why I jumped on the opportunity. So, up in the top right, it is, of course, the Red Protoss, playing for Team Incredible Miracle, sponsored by LG. It is Seed. So, PVZ, it is on Daybreak. It is Heart of the Swarm. What does that mean? Roach Hydra into Viper. That's good. Swarm hosts, Corruptors, they are good. For the Protoss player, Mothership cores can add some interesting dynamics in, especially some early aggression where we see Seed go for the 1-gate expansion. Maybe go in for something even more peculiar, like some 3-gate pressure into an expansion. We will wait and see, time will tell, but what I do know is that these two are certainly top quality, and I know that Rico really likes this matchup. I'm 90% sure it's his favourite matchup, ZvP, so hopefully that will just be shown here. But of course Seed, he's got a lot of very big wins and very tough opponents beaten in his name, so therefore this is the sort of thing where this could go either way, honestly speaking. But I'm going to admit to you all, and this is something you should never admit as a caster, but I am slightly biased towards JonnyREcco just because I have met him quite a few times and I think he's an awesome fellow. So, Hatchery coming down, a Hatchery before Pool. Could you get much more brave right now? Seriously, Hatchery before Pool is a bold move no matter what. Luckily, just due to the fact that there was a gateway expand coming out, it's not going to be a huge issue. There is the gas there, which poses the question of what's that gas going to be used for. Most likely warp gate tech, just getting started up quick. But is it also going to be for a mothership core? We'll wait to see what happens after. For the moment, Rico now just sending that drone down. I'm going to go and have a little check around to make sure there's no pylon or anything, any sort of shenanigans like that. So this is really clever thinking. It's the sort of minor step you have to take if you're going to take a risk, such as getting down that hatchery before the spawning pool. Seed, though, has scouted everything out that he needs to. Rico now with the Overlord here will see that actually no Nexus down, no wall off at the natural, and therefore I'm probably going to be up against some early aggression, and there's going to be quite a lot because a second gas just allows you to tech very heavily, get an awful lot of units out quite quickly, especially quite sentry heavy should you want it to be, but it is not. It's going to be just straight up to that Stargate. So this is similar to what players such as Whiteguard do with the Oracle opening, maybe some Phoenix, they're still very viable. And it's just gearing towards Skytoss, which is the sort of thing which, once you get it up, it's sort of like mech for Terran. Once it's built up into a sizable force, it can be exceptionally hard to deal with. So, once this is scouted out, which it should be by this Overlord, assuming we don't see a couple of Stalkers too fast, then it's just up to Rico to work out how he's going to deal with it. What is the composition he's going to go for? And honestly, there's different thought processes. Some people who say Corruptors are really good. Other people who say, no, you want to get loads of Hydra. And it's really up to the individual and how they see it working. But there's definitely pros and cons to each. So we'll wait to see. But for the moment, Rico is just keeping an eye on this expansion. He wants to know, when does that go down? A gateway wall off now at the front. And sending this Overlord in sees some important stuff. Sees that... Actually, no, it sees nothing important. I thought it just clipped the edge of that gateway, but for the moment, no information at all about what's going on. Rico pulling the Overlord out, thinking, ooh, maybe I'm going to get that sniped off. Perhaps I should be a little bit careful. Make sure that it doesn't go down. Behind this, of course, Zergling Speed is on its way out. There is only 2 queens for the time being, but a third is on its way. And importantly, that a lot of people are used to seeing a very fast third base out of Zerg, but you don't need that if your opponent hasn't taken the natural. You just want to stay a base up. So, the Mothership core is now on its way out. There's nothing other than this Oracle on the field, but that will likely change. The Oracle now on its way through. How much damage can be done here? Of course, Oracles kill off drones very quickly, but there are 2 queens at the natural, which means it can get focused down very easily. But it looks like Seed just happy to try and kill as many workers as possible for getting taken down very early on. But that means JonnyREcco is still ahead. He chucks down those Spore Crawlers. This single Overlord just coming in, getting a good look. Doesn't actually see the Stargate though, so that's a bit unfortunate, but can probably guess where it is by that pylon. And because there's only a couple of sentries, this Overlord does get a complete view of the base, gets a complete run through. And what is really important to pick up on ASAP is the fact that there is only the single Oracle and not a double Oracle, because that's something that a lot of Zerg players will be worried about and will be used to seeing. One is just a bit less of a commitment, but it still allows you to do some harassment. And now, what Recco is really looking for here is when this natural base comes down. And we'll see the probe coming, we'll see the Nexus get started, and as such things, okay, this is now a safer spot. Once you see this come down, it's unlikely your opponent is going to be putting on too much pain. There's still been a long period of time with one base though, and the knowledge of 2 gateways being there. So as such, there will be a sizable force of gateway units, but a good scout on that, seeing there was a lot of sentries there from the speedlings. So as such, I'd say for a Zerg player in this perspective, you know that actually I need to start thinking about taking my 3rd relatively soon. I need to start teching up in order to deal with things like these oracles, but with the Spore Crawler there, this should be fairly easy to deal with. Just pulling the drones back, making sure not to lose any of them for the moment, but as we can see, this Oracle isn't going to be able to achieve too much more. The drone already down here, waiting for just that magical 300 minerals where you can chuck down the hatchery, and right on cue, there it goes down. Meanwhile, Seed getting up this wall off, getting the forge and an additional gateway, 3rd and 4th gas coming down super early too. But nothing more getting produced out of that Stargate quite yet. The Phoenix just going to town on any overlords that are about on the map. The Oracle trying to get any kills where it can. We'll see that the 3rd base has come down. We'll try and deal with that as best it. We won't try and deal with it, but we'll basically just be aware of it to go in should it need to. But Recco doing a good job with his queens, making sure he's pushing back that Oracle, protecting everything he needs to, and is now going for the infestation pit, which, as anyone who's watched Heart of the Swarm will know, that an infestation pit doesn't mean infestors anymore. It could also mean some swarm hosts, which would be great fun to see, and it's then just the transition out of that with the +1 missile attack coming down and the lack of a roach warren. That just makes me think it's definitely going to be swarm hosts for the upgrade advantage, but who knows, we'll wait and see. We've got the Twilight Council now up for Seed, teching very heavily, getting the +1 melee, getting the +1 ground attack rather. So with all of this, with this single hallucinated Phoenix, that is just getting some more scouting information for Seed, who does see that there is the infestation pit down there, sees the evolution chamber. That's the sort of information you need, and Recco did actually start out pathogen glands and then cancelled it. Started enduring locusts, but then cancelled that, and I'm not sure if that was a misclick, but we do have some swarm hosts on the way, and if you are going for swarm hosts, you definitely want that upgrade down as soon as you can. So hopefully we'll see that start up fairly soon. The thing with swarm hosts is most players agree that actually for them to be effective, you need a relatively large number of them on the field, but as we can see with 6 in production, that number will be achieved very quickly. So 3rd base positioning just means that actually I'm probably going to be taking this base as a Protoss. We've got a good gateway force chilling, just trying to stay defensive. A nice little wall up here, keeping one Zealot there, something you never want to forget. The Spire coming down behind this as well for JonnyREcco. Now that just means that he could very well be aiming to go for Corruptor Swarm Host, which I know his teammate Tefel likes doing. I don't know who taught it to who, or whether it was kind of a group idea between all of them, but Swarm Host Corruptor is really strong. It's a great composition to use, and the reason it's so strong is that really the best way to deal with Swarm Hosts is by going for Sky Toss. You just get out an awful lot of, say, Tempest, Void Ray, etc., and laugh that Locust can't shoot up. Downside though is that if there's lots of Corruptors out, it can be difficult to make that transition, and as we can see already, we've got Seed trying to go into Colossi, which admittedly with their splash damage do relatively well against Locusts and help defend a Gateway army, but if there's Corruptors out, that's just going to make they're going to make short work of any Colossus on the field. So a 4th base coming down now for the Zerg player. The 3rd is nearly up and running for the Protoss, but with the way things are standing at the moment, it's a more passive defensive style using these swarm hosts. You can use them very offensively, or you can use them in the same way as you would just leapfrog a tank line and use it really quite defensively. So this push, as we've got coming in from Seed now, isn't going to be able to do much. There's only a very small number of units as well. Not something that I would be too concerned about. Just checking around with this observer, maybe trying to spot out if there's any swarm hosts around. A couple of speedlings running through, get a good scout on this 3rd base and know that actually my opponent's on 3 bases, good job, I've got my 4th nearly finished. Can I do anything to punish that? And does get a good read on what army is out on the field. So once you start seeing a very small force, especially when we're looking at a situation where the Zerg player is quite comfortably ahead in terms of supply, you may decide to go and try and apply some pressure, but Rico sees that there's actually quite a few sentries there. Not really liking this engagement, so I'm not going to go for it quite yet. Just getting more swarm hosts out, getting out the macro hatch. Also, the 7th and 8th gas geyser are now down. Good scout out, seeing double robotics facilities. See the robotics bay as well. That just screams, I'm going for Colossi. As such, the Corruptors will need to start coming out fairly soon. We've got none on the field yet, as you can see from the units tab. But what this observer is doing is just trying to get, Overseer is getting a good read of, rather, is just what is going on, what is in the base, what tech do I need to worry about. Checking for a fleet beacon as well, that's important because that's when you can start seeing Tempest. And Tempest added in with an observer in order to gain vision for them are a good way to deal with swarm hosts. So that's really the scouting information I'd be looking for. I could be completely off the mark, but just seeing the Colossi alone isn't enough in my opinion. You want to know, is it just Colossi or do I have to worry about a significant air army? But for the time being, Zerg player just being nicely defensive. We've got Seed looking to take his 4th. This is just the point where actually you want to be thinking, can I take my 5th? Can I even be greedy and try and take a 6th base? Well, the Phoenix is checking this one. You could try and come up here, but again, it's a bit more of an awkward situation. So we'll wait to see. For the moment, both players probably going to stay on 4 bases for a while. These swarm hosts just sending wave after wave of locusts. Rico's showing us exactly how you should micro them, though you wait for a wave of locusts to spawn, and then you unburrow and follow them. But now, here they go, they're going and they start chipping away as Zealot goes down. Any unit you kill with locusts are very, very good, because you're killing something which costs resources with something that costs no resources. So they can be insanely cost effective if engaged well. A couple of hallucinated Phoenix coming down here, just trying to get a good scout. We do see the Corruptors coming in from the side, trying to do some nice damage to those Colossi. The Stalkers need to get underneath them. Some great transfuses are hitting there, but still the concern is going to be these swarm hosts. These locusts are going to keep on coming, wave after wave after wave. And you can only deal with them for so long. This 4th base really getting besieged. The Corruptors coming in as well, and as we can see, should these Stalkers spend too much time and attention trying to deal with the Locust, then actually the Corruptors can get some good damage off. And with 15 on the field, we saw there that they are able to one-shot Colossi. So the swarm host just ever getting closer, now pretty much on top of this 4th base. The Corruptors there as well, trying to manage the Colossi count down to 3, 2 more, another one on its way down, but it's coming on its own, so that means that should Rico be paying attention, he should be able to snipe that off, but doesn't feel like he can go for it. Might feel overcommitted with just how many Stalkers are there. The 4th base though, almost certain to die now. A Photon Overcharge did go down, but it's not doing enough damage, and as such these swarm hosts can just keep pressing forward. And interestingly, Rico choosing to go up towards the natural, going to separate the natural base from the 3rd. This is a really smart move due to the positioning of Seed's army for the time being, using the Corruptors over the dead space as well, trying to get a couple of shots off. Does manage to take down one of those Colossus, but as we can see, for the moment the Stalker count pretty high, the Colossi count still high enough to deal with these Locusts in a fairly quick speed, but so many swarm hosts out now. 18 swarm hosts, and of course still those 10 Corruptors there. They can get a couple of volleys. Another Colossus does fall, and every time you start getting a shot off on those Colossus, you know that you may be able to take them down, and once you start taking them down, the Locusts become a lot less effective. But a nice blink there will mean that we get a couple, or actually a vast majority of those Corruptors falling. With so many more getting resupplied or getting reinforced, that should be good news. The Observer is by the Watchtower. That means that should this wave come in, it can start dealing damage to the Locusts, to the swarm hosts rather. But the important thing is that JonnyREcco is now just unburrowing. He's escaping, using that wave of Locusts as a shield. But a good blink forward from Seed means that a couple of those swarm hosts could potentially go down. But with a complete retreat, I don't think it would be wise for Seed to move forward. But he does go for the blink, but there are now a lot of Zerglings there, and as such, a lot of Stalkers could potentially die. A couple of gateway reinforcements are on their way through. Still, the Colossi are falling, and now they are all gone. That means no splash damage in order to deal with those Locusts. More swarm hosts are in production for JonnyREcco, and as such, I would say Seed is seeming to be in quite a bit of problems. He is still on 3 bases, but Rico on 4 could possibly look to take his 5th, and literally, as I'm saying that, there we go, it's already queued up to be built. The Greater Spire coming down, so we're going to be seeing ground Broodlords and air Broodlords, but the important thing is these Locusts. They are just doing so much damage. Seed being forced to use a lot of APM and a lot of micro control in order to keep those Stalkers alive, prevent them losing health to these 3 units. But if we look at the resources lost, it's still quite even. Slightly more resources lost for Seed compared to Johnny right now, but not by enough to make it a super big problem. But the thing is, as a Protoss player, you always want to be engaging cost effectively. The Oracle taken down there, the reason I know it's an Oracle is because they make lovely big green explosions whenever they go bang, which is oh so satisfying. I love the physics engine and the death animations in Heart of the Swarm. But now, we do see that Seed, he's got up a sizable force, and he's perhaps feeling confident to start moving forward. Got the 2 observers there in order to try and deal some damage. If only there was an overseer with Rico's army, he could snipe those off. The Corruptors are taking damage, they're not safe up on that high ground, so do need to be very careful indeed. But the Colossi are slightly exposed, they're left completely undefended by the Stalkers at the moment. A good blink goes back, but 1 falls, 2 more on under half health. And as such, we see these Locusts still just pushing forward. Another burrow coming down here. The Corruptors have just got to get in at a nice angle. If they can loop around and take out those Colossi, well actually, then you're going to be feeling good. Really, really good. Because that's when you don't have the splash as a Protoss player in order to deal with this. But Rico being forced into pretty much a full retreat. Meanwhile, went for a little Zergling run by, but a good number of Zealots there getting warped in order to defend it. Broodlords, though, are en route. 13 of them. Broodlords plus Swarm Host equals a huge amount of free units. And you know what free units mean? Being cost effective, and it doesn't matter you've lost this 4th base because you've still got your 5th up, and with this real solid army, you're going to be able to deal well. The Swarm Host taking some damage, need to get out of there, but here comes the Broodlords. The cavalry is arriving from over the cliff, and as such, Seed will be forced now to retreat. What do you do in this situation as a Zerg? You try and keep this base alive as best you can. A good blink forward there from Seed. Will it be enough though? Zerglings streaming forward. And with this, so many Stalkers are taking an awful lot of damage. We do see insane amounts of blink micro coming down. But for the time being, Colossi going down, the Stalker count getting lower, Locusts are coming in. We've got, with the Broodlings tanking up quite a bit of damage, Locusts as well able to do some nice hits. The Stalker count getting lower and lower and lower. When we look at the fact that actually the natural base is starting to get a little bit low, mined out of the main, Seed could be starting to run into some economical problems. He's got a lot of gas, but not that many minerals. He's only had 45 workers. That Zergling run by did do a nice amount of damage, killing 23 as we saw earlier. But the Broodlords just edging forward, the Swarm Host edging forward as well. More Swarm Hosts coming out, more Broodlords coming out. Rico with a solid near 50 supply advantage will force Seed back. So, a brief lull in the action, let's recap. We saw the 4th base for Seed get taken out with that incredible Swarm Host Corruptor aggression. Then we saw the 4th base of Rico get taken out in some counter pushing with a good Stalker and Colossi count. But with the Broodlords hitting the field, Rico was able to force back Seed, and Seed is now trying to reposition himself, trying to get up a more sizable force, being down at only 150 supply to Rico's pretty much 200. And as such, I would say this game is getting pretty leveled out. It all comes down to how well defended this 3rd base is, and it isn't at all. These Speedlings are going to be able to stream straight in and be able to kill an awful lot of probes before anything happens. Seed not yet started the warp-in, so we will see so many probes get taken out. They are just getting absolutely obliterated right now. The 1-2 upgrades are down. 1 Zealot getting warped in. Units trying to come back, but Rico has now managed to kill 38 probes. That has taken Seed down to just 30 workers. And as such, JonnyREcco is going to be feeling very confident. He's also forced back all of Protoss army, forcing a cancel of this center base. That is going to hurt the economy of Seed even further. And as such, with the push coming, with this Broodlord Swarm Host force just edging its way closer, well, Seed, he won't be panicking, but my goodness is he going to be scratching his head thinking, how do I stop this? He's going for just a couple of High Templar. If we look at the research upgrades, no Storm, therefore Archon should be coming in, and as I say it, it is there. Storm is actually a good choice against Locusts. You can kill them with Storm very effectively. It's one thing you should always consider as a Protoss player against a Zerg going for mass swarms, but to be honest, this is going to come down to some big engagements. The Void Race, the Stalkers trying to come through. The Locusts now getting controlled independently on their way back. But with the Locusts now coming in, this is going to be pretty tough. Rico trying to micro those Broodlords back as best he can, trying to keep them alive. The Locusts are able to do some really nice damage. Meanwhile, the Void Rays are completely immune to everything. Nothing can actually shoot up right now. And due to that, JonnyREcco is going to be forced back, is going to lose quite a few of these Broodlords, but he's still up at 11 Broods, 9 Swarm Hosts. In terms of the loss tab, that is pretty much as even as you are ever going to see it at the 27-minute mark. But Seed, he tries to blink forward. I'm not sure if that was an overcommitment. He is forcing himself to go back now after some great transfuses on those Broodlords. And now with the Corruptors hitting the field, actually those Voidways are not immune, and therefore the one advantage that Seed had is starting to quickly diminish. His army now, or his entire supply now, down to just 80, and as such JonnyREcco is looking to be really in a dominating position. Those 3 Colossi are still up at the Locust, still coming, still shooting, still dealing damage. Meanwhile, Rico is taking his 6th base. He's got his 5th base up. Just a 3-base Protoss, the natural, pretty much mined out, and as such, this is really Seed's, really Rico's game to lose right now. So there is the GG. Seed, knowing he can't do it, big congratulations to JonnyREcco there for taking out such a powerhouse. But my goodness, that was a fantastic game. It is the first Zerg v Protoss game I've seen where there's actually been Broodlords and Swarm Hosts down at the same time. Good bit of back and forth. I hope each and every one of you did enjoy it though. If you did, like the video, leave a cool comment, and subscribe. I'll see each and every one of you tomorrow for yet another new cast. Bye.